dig into your salads, and I just will get things going. My name is Krista Parkin. I am one of the co-chairs of this year's event. And on behalf of my co-chair, Tammy Teskey, and an amazing group of DFL women, I'd like to welcome you today to the 8th annual DFL Women's Hall of Fame event, celebrating the contributions of DFL leaders, activists, and volunteers. As we sit down to enjoy our wonderful meals today, it needs to be said that the Women's Summit Committee is a group that understands that the L in DFL stands for labor. We are at the St. Paul Hotel today because it is a union hotel. The important connection between organized labor and everyday struggles and advances of women should not be overlooked. As women struggle for economic justice, it has been organized labor that has often led the way. While women nationally make only 77 cents for each dollar men earn, under a union contract, women earn the same pay for the same work. This fact is particularly relevant this week following the Supreme Court's decision in Ledbetter versus Goodyear, which seriously undermines a woman's ability to challenge pay discrimination in court. Even more outrageous is Chief Justice Roberts' characterization of equal pay for women as a radical redistributive concept. We understand that women too frequently can't take active roles in politics because they're too busy working to make ends meet for themselves and their families. Organized labor's contributions and advances to women's economic status allow women to participate in what has too frequently become a social luxury, politics. When more women partake in politics, they gain not only political freedom, but increased social and economic freedoms as well. It is in recognition of the important cycle of economic, social, and political empowerment and its connection to organized labor that we respect, support, and honor labor today on behalf of all working people in Minnesota. Please join me in thanking the fantastic staff here at the St. Paul Hotel who prepared and serve our wonderful meals today. It is also important to take a moment to recognize our sponsors because without them, this event would not be possible. Our ticket price only covers the cost of your meal. It is the generous contributions of our sponsors that pay for our honorees' meals, programs, invitations, and everything else. Our sponsors' names are listed in our program and on the screen now. Many of them are here with us today, and we would like them to stand as we show our thanks for their generous support of the women in the DFL. Eight years ago, a small group of remarkable women believed that the vital contributions of DFL women should be celebrated in the style that DFL women deserve. The members of this group of women, who we like to refer to as the Magnificent Seven, were Betsy O'Berry, Beth LaRoe, Gail Huntley, Sarah Leverance, Mary McAvoy, Judy Shermer, and Jackie Stevenson. Being women of action, they decided to honor the women leaders of this party and founded the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. This special group took the bold step of creating the DFL Women's Hall of Fame first and going back to the DFL party structure to notify them of their creation afterwards. These women leaders never asked permission to host this event. Keeping true to many female trailblazers before them, they simply took the leap of faith forward and created the Hall of Fame. The DFL Women's Hall of Fame is a concrete way to honor the contributions of women to our party and is unique in several ways. First of all, this is a grassroots event that encourages everyone across the state to participate. The Women's Summit Committee solicits nominations on behalf of outstanding women from across the state. Second, the DFL Women's Hall of Fame is the only DFL award ceremony that focuses exclusively on women. The women we honor today represent a broad range of activists statewide that make up our DFL party. The DFL Women's Hall of Fame is also the only DFL award ceremony that does not focus on individuals currently holding elective or party leadership on the congressional list, district level and above. Our belief is that we need to honor these women not currently in the spotlight. That's not to say elected officials can't and don't win our Women of Distinction awards, but rather they are not honored while in office. This ensures that we remain true to our grassroots roots. We also want to identify and honor the new women of all ages that will become the future leaders of our party. Therefore, the committee established a Rising Star category to acknowledge and encourage new and emerging leaders. This is the 8th annual awards luncheon, and the Women's Summit Committee has honored over 100 women. One of the founders' greatest fundamental beliefs when conceptualizing this event was that a woman, once she was a woman of distinction, would always be a woman of distinction. Therefore, I would now ask our past honorees, both Women of Distinction and Rising Stars, to stand and be recognized. It's bittersweet to once again acknowledge our past honorees because some are no longer with us. Our committee has been told time and time again how wonderful it is for women to be honored and appreciated in their own time. We couldn't agree more. Yet it's truly a toss-up as to who gets more pleasure out of today's event, the women honored or our committee who gets to spread joy to so many people. So to all our honorees, whether they are here with us today in person or in spirit, the Women's Summit Committee honors you. The names of our past honorees will be displayed on the screen as you enjoy your meal, and we will start our program at 12:30. If you could please take your seats, we'll get started. I hope that everyone has been enjoying their meals, conversation, and the company of the outstanding DFL women we have here today. We're going to start by honoring our party's everyday heroes, our women of distinction. These women have been selected because they are trailblazers for other women in our party. These women have been selected because they have committed their time, energy, and heart to our party. Our women of distinction have worked for public policies consistent with our principles, and our women of distinction have opened doors and infused our party with new ideas and energy. Our winners today are, simply stated, women of distinction. The women on stage presenting the awards today are members of the Women's Summit Committee that volunteered their time for months to make this event a reality. In the interest of time, we ask that you hold your applause until we are actually presenting our winners with their awards. Our first presenter today will be Tammy Teskey.
It is my distinct honor today to present our first inductee into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame, Alice Colley. Alice Colley has been a trailblazer for the DFL principles since the early 1960s. She was an outspoken advocate for the choice movement before Roe v. Wade. One of her first ventures was to write her state representative to support the Helen McMillan bill to do away with Minnesota's archaic abortion laws. She researched birthright and other programs to get at the truth about the current options available by posing as a young pregnant mother facing an impossible situation. She visited the Hennepin County Coroner's Office to view results of backstreet or self-induced abortions to be better able to convey the message of the dangers women face without choice. She has been involved with NABRL since the earliest days of its founding and is still today. Alice has many wonderful skills, but is perhaps the best known for her writing skills. One of her efforts is included in the book Feminists Who Changed America from 1963 to 1975. She's very frequently a contributor to letters to the editor in the local and metropolitan newspapers, which you can still read on a regular basis. She's quietly gathered together many experiences with her vast knowledge to write a book of her own about women and choice. When she and her husband Ed, of more than 57 years, lived in Woodbury, Alice was an active participant in school board meetings. She worked hard to get kindergarten established in the community and was instrumental in getting the bond issue passed to support kindergarten. Alice and Ed moved to Sherburne County in 1975 and have been involved in local DFL organizations ever since. Alice is truly a force to be reckoned with. She keeps on top of the issues and calls, faxes, or writes for representatives as needed. She's an active member and supporter of the local NOW chapter. She's a director on the Sherburne County DFL and has been a delegate and active volunteer throughout the years. Alice has prepared and brought meals to fellow Democrats just out of the hospital and is truly the backbone of the DFL in the Sherburne County. Alice does this all while facing some serious challenges. She has conquered breast cancer and a double mastectomy, colon cancer and leukemia, and still struggles with emphysema. But she does so with courage, without complaint, with a beautiful smile, with more enthusiasm for the next challenge. It is truly my honor today to recognize her as the next DFL Woman of Distinction.
In the Minnesota DFL, there is a short list of people who are regional powerhouses. These are the people who keep the lists, focus the energy, know the people, and most of all, get things done. In the Mankato area, the undisputed leader is Senate District 23 Chair Judy Gow. Judy started her political involvement in Iowa's Grundy County Democratic Party. In her small town, she quickly became known as one of the Democratic Party leaders. So much so that while Judy was on a trip to Washington, D.C., the local Republican Party leader sent her husband, who considered himself a Republican, a letter with the note, "While Judy is out of town, we thought you might want to make a contribution to help us out." Of course, the Republicans did not know that Judy's husband never opened the mail, so Judy was highly entertained when she got home. Judy was an advocate for the Fight for Democrats Everywhere philosophy long before DNC Chair Howard Dean. Judy led a voter identification and get out the vote effort that she is proud to say resulted in the Democratic candidates losing only 2-1 rather than the usual 3-1 in Grundy County. One of Judy's favorite Iowa stories is that she brought her complaining husband to a fundraiser headlined by the Smothers Brothers. She said that she should get an award for persuading her Republican husband to come to the event, and Tommy Smothers agreed, giving her a big kiss. After moving to the Mankato area, Judy continued to work behind the scenes, providing tireless support and energy, good cheer, and insight to several legislative candidates. Former state representative and DFL Woman of Distinction Ruth Johnson calls her one of her top advisors and credits Judy with much of her political success. As a matter of fact, all of her current legislators are here to join in this tribute to Judy. And Judy, 1st District Congressman, wanted me personally to tell you that he was so sorry that he couldn't be here to listen to this for you. Perhaps the one thing that Judy is best known for is her leadership on the annual Dan and Ronnie Burton Dinner, which has become an event not to be missed in southern Minnesota. DFL officials and candidates regularly make the pilgrimage to Mankato to attend this event, now in its 11th year. Everybody comes. It's become one of the premier and prized civic events in the area. Judy Gow, we consider ourselves kissed by good fortune to have you among us. For all your behind-the-scenes work, you truly deserve recognition yourself. It is with great affection that we welcome you into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame.
afternoon. This event is a special event for me. I just wanted to share with you that I was on the first committee and was giving an award to Marcy Wards, who's no longer with us, but special to many of us in the room. And this event, talking about this event and the award for Marcy Wards is where I met my husband at the 8th District Convention. Our first date was the first luncheon, and we were engaged the day before the second luncheon where Mary McAvoy announced it to this crowd. So we're both glad to be here with you today. So I am delighted to get to present the award to Norma Hansen. Norma Hansen was nominated by Doug Peterson, the president of Minnesota Farmers Union, and Senator Leroy Stump for her labor of love, which is working for the DFL and promoting agriculture. Norma and her family are active dairy farmers in Marshall County. Norma Hansen truly is a woman of distinction who personifies DFL. Democrat. Norma has been chair of the Senate District 1 for 16 years and is the associate chair of the Marshall County DFL. She is an active fundraiser for local candidates and was Wally Sparby's first campaign manager. Norma also ran for state house herself once. She describes this as a long time ago when she was a young kid of 45 years of age. Farmer. Norma was the first woman to serve as vice president of the Minnesota Farmers Union. She currently serves as the president of Marshall County Farmers Union. She helped found Egg in the Classroom, which has become a national program. Norma tells the story, or told me the story, about delivering the first edition to schools across the Minnesota in the back of the truck. Her and her husband watched the mud flaps drag along the highway from the weight of the paper as they delivered the curriculum. She is the member of the American Agro Women who lobby in DC and founded the Minnesota Agro Women chapter. And recently she resurrected the Northwest Dairy Days where her and her family show registered Ayrshires. The family has won a world championship at the National Dairy Expo. Labor. Norma served on a local school board for 16 years. She works hard for her community and was founder of the Goodridge Area Historical Society. Norma, my last tidbit for you on Norma, is she writes and directs plays. And appropriately, her most recent musical was entitled Saturday Night Barnyard Dance, or Barn Dance. Norma has been a leader for our party, agriculture, and women across the nation. As a young woman active in the DFL and Farmers Union, I admire Norma's commitment. Would you please help me thank Norma for her accomplishments?
Some people mature into community activism. Some people have it thrust upon them. And some people, like Dr. Josie Johnson, simply cannot remember a time when they were not active. As a teenager, Josie helped her father canvass her hometown of Houston with an anti-poll tax petition. She's been active in politics ever since. In fact, her brother was the first African American elected to the Houston City Council. Josie has led an extraordinary life as a change maker, organizer, and activist. She was a founding member of the Minneapolis-St. Paul chapter of the National Council of Negro Women, and is also active in the local NAACP and Urban League. In the early 1960s, Josie lobbied professionally for the passage of bills concerning such issues as fair housing and employment opportunities. She realized, as she spoke to legislators, particularly some from rural areas, that she was the first black person that they had ever spoken to. Her efforts paid off in the passage of the Fair Housing Act in Minnesota in 1962, well before the federal government addressed this issue. She also made a trip to Mississippi in 1964 to take part in the civil rights movement there. It was a very frightening time. Josie said, "Our people were being abused and killed down there." The team was told that they could travel as an integrated group only as far as Chicago and would have to separate by race as they went further south. She later worked with elected officials as a mayoral aide in Minneapolis in the late 1960s and as executive assistant to the Lieutenant Governor of Colorado from 1975 to 1978. She supervised Judson Robinson's congressional campaign in 1978 in Texas and was deputy campaign manager of the Jimmy Carter presidential campaign in Tennessee in 1980. Josie was truly a trailblazer. She was the first African-American woman elected to the University of Minnesota Board of Regents, serving from 1971 to 1973. She became a senior fellow at the University of Minnesota in 1987 and went on to become Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, responsible for minority affairs and diversity at the college. In recognition of her lifetime contribution to civil rights and social justice, the university established the Josie R. Johnson Human Rights and Social Justice Award in her honor. On August 7, 1989, Josie experienced the worst nightmare of any parent when her oldest daughter, Patrice, Chief of Staff to Congressman Mickey Leland, died along with the congressman and 14 others when their small plane crashed en route to a refugee camp in Ethiopia. Determined to make something good come of this tragedy, Josie established the Leland-Johnson Common Vision Leadership Program, which encourages the next generation of African American and Jewish leaders to work together through leadership development opportunities and shared experiences to become effective and purposeful change makers in their communities and the world around them. Josie has served on over 35 boards of trustees and continues to serve our community today as an elder and advisor on many boards and campaigns. Because of a conflict with another event, Josie was not able to be with us today, but she is proud that her tradition of education and activism is being carried on in her family. Her granddaughter, Lauren Thomas, who just graduated from Carleton College and is soon to begin an internship in the New York District Attorney's Office, is accepting the award on her behalf.
It is my honor today to induct Katie McWatt into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. It is truly impossible in just a few short minutes to quantify the countless contributions Katie has made on behalf of the African American community, women, and the Democratic Party. Katie's activism and passion for creating a better world started early. Growing up in the Twin Cities and as a student in the Minneapolis High School in the 1940s, Katie was one of only a few African American students. She learned early on that if she wanted to see change in her world, she would have to create it herself. When she and another young black woman went to participate in the drama club and were denied, they petitioned their school board and got in. When she was a college student at the University of Minnesota and she witnessed a favorite professor, who happened to be popular, black, and socialist, get terminated because of his political beliefs, Katie channeled her anger into activism and participated in student protests. In the 1960s and 1970s, whenever Katie saw a need for change, she got involved. As a young wife and mother, Katie saw injustices in the law for African Americans and for women. Wanting to create a better world for her children, Katie got involved in the civil rights movement and in the women's movement. Katie got involved first with the League of Women Voters in an effort to help increase diversity in the League. Katie learned how to organize, research the issues, lobby elected officials, and also in the process helped the League to eventually add civil rights and human rights to their statewide agenda. In 1964, Katie worked to make change closer to home when she successfully campaigned to win a place in the primary election for a seat on the St. Paul City Council. While she didn't win the council seat, she did receive 38,000 votes and helped to get fair housing on the agenda. In fact, Katie was the first chairperson of the St. Paul Housing Commission and held a series of public hearings on the issue of justice in housing that led eventually to the enactment of the St. Paul Fair Housing Ordinance. Following her run for office, Katie served as Director of Community Services from 1965 to 1982 for the St. Paul Urban League. It was an advocate during the whole time for improved educational programs. After leaving the Urban League, she became coordinator of the Central High School's Minority Education Program for 17 years, finally retiring in 2000. While Katie may be retired, she still hasn't stopped changing the world. Whether it has been in assisting the African American Brotherhood group at the Stillwater Prison in resolving their administrative and inmate conflicts, or participating in protest demonstrations at the point of even getting arrested, lobbying at the legislature or filing a lawsuit against discrimination, Katie McWatt has spent a lifetime making things happen and in the process changing the world. To her family, Katie is a wife, a mother, a grandmother, but to all of us here, she is also a trailblazer, a mentor, and a tireless advocate on behalf of the African American community, women, and the Democratic Party. It is truly my honor to present to her the DFL Women of Distinction Award.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to tell you a bit about Vicki O'Shirley, to celebrate her contributions to our party and to honor today her as a true DFL Woman of Distinction. In 1964, Vicki and her husband Seki moved to Burnsville, and she got to work right away. Vicki served on the school board, has been president of the League of Women Voters, and for over 40 years has been critical to building and growing a stronger DFL in her community. Now, despite the hard work of good folks like Vicki, Jeannie Thomas, and others, there have been some pretty lean years for the DFL in Burnsville. No, it's true. But Vicki has always insisted the party put serious and capable candidates on the ballot every cycle, no matter how Republican-leaning the district or how daunting the task. She herself ran for the legislature in both 82 and 96. Now, why is that so important? For 3 reasons. First, our issues are just too important not to be heard during an election, and people deserve a choice, no matter where they live. Second, and Vicki knows this, it is very important to receive the public financing given candidates so we can run meaningful, get out the vote efforts for the entire DFL ticket in every corner of the state. And finally, who knows? We might just win. Just ask Senators John Dole and Jim Carlson and Representatives Will Morgan, Shelley Mador, and Sandy Mason. They just replaced 5 Republicans, and now the DFL represents all of the Now, hard work is not enough. We must be a party of ideas. You know what Linus Pauling said about ideas? You better have a lot of them, because most of them are bad. So 20 years ago, Vicki, Don Fraser, and others founded the DFL Education Foundation to focus the best progressive minds to work on the biggest issues facing our state. Now in politics, there's no shortage of answers. Vicki and the DFL Education Foundation work to make sure we are asking the right questions. How can we get quality health care for all Minnesotans? What can we do about the cars clogging our highways? And, Mayor McAvoy's favorite, why should we invest in early education? Vicki remains a driving force of the foundation, serving as editor of its influential and widely distributed newsletter. In her spare time, seriously, do you have any spare time? Vicki finds time to take small steps in the direction of peace. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it." Vicki has knitted and crocheted 4 Afghans, 25 sweaters, and numerous hats for children in Afghanistan through an organization called Afghans for Afghans, in the tradition pioneered by volunteers of the Red Cross during World Wars I and II. Vicki, thank you for honoring us with all your hard work. Today, it is our pleasure to honor you as truly a DFL Woman of Distinction. Thank you.
Many of you have known Georgiana Ruzich since she attended her first precinct caucus in 1974, never realizing what an illustrious behind-the-candidates career she would have. Coming from the small village that she lovingly calls McKinley, Minnesota, others call it a suburb of Gilbert, Georgiana attended Virginia Junior College for 2 years, receiving an elementary education degree from Winona State, where she transferred. After teaching for 1 year in Illinois, Georgiana returned to Minnesota to teach in the Robbinsdale School District for 34 years, retiring in 1998. And if that isn't an act of distinction, I don't know what is. As a Robbinsdale Education Association building representative, she became involved in contract negotiations and got the bug, attending that first caucus. One could name all of the campaign and political unit activities possible to do, and Georgiana has been there and done them. Always mentoring new people and sharing her experiences. But one stands out in my mind above all the others. In the summer of 1982, she and her friend Carol McCarter drove the entire city of Maple Grove with plat maps, marking each spot that actually had a house built on it. She then went home and spent part of the summer, much to her father's chagrin, marking every address and connecting it with a name. You talk about IDing, folks, and with no computers, just pen, pencil, and hard work, when gas was cheaper. Georgiana eventually became chair of Congressional District 6, only to find herself reapportioned in the infamous 1993 lawsuit into Congressional District 3, where she served as a co-chair with another female. She became chair in 1994 and was there in that position until 2006. Upon her retirement from the classroom in '98, she threw herself into traveling, visiting art galleries and museums, and has become quite a renowned watercolorist, now combining it with acrylics. She co-chairs a semi-annual workshop for her painting group, bringing in national and internationally known artists for a week's working session. Her love of art shows in her taste both in clothing and classic jewelry. She has also become active in the Serbian Unity Congress, lobbying in Washington for human rights for minorities in Kosovo after that group's annual conventions. She was scheduled to leave for Belgrade and Montenegro to search for relatives on 9/12/01, but the tragic events on 9/11 canceled that trip. She still hopes to make it. Georgiana has been a participant in reactivating the DFL Senior Caucus and has attended many DNC Senior Council sessions as Minnesota's representative, continuing her political vein. One little personal note, if she ever asks you to meet her for breakfast, be prepared, because she usually likes to start with a very rich, gooey piece of pie. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, frequent roommate on the road, and sometime bridge partner, and a true DFL woman of distinction, Georgiana Rusich.
I met our next awardee, Joan Whitman, over 5 years ago on the campaign for State Senator Meanwhile, and I have been amazed with her energy, dedication, and friendship ever since. Little did I know that this wonderful woman has been transforming women's and children's lives in St. Paul for more than 50 years. Joan grew up on a farm near Belle Plaine and went on to Mankato State University, where she met Wayne, another wonderful friend. She graduated in 1953 and married him 3 years later. Right out of college, Joan taught kindergarten, but had to leave teaching when she got pregnant with the first of her 5 children, all of which are here with her today, celebrating with us. While she was a stay-at-home mom, she became a substitute and a volunteer for the Sacred Heart Parish on the east side of St. Paul. There she created the first religious education program in the state. After volunteering for 10 years, she was able to work her way up to becoming the full-time coordinator of religious education for 3 different parishes in the area and maintained that position for 25 years. In 1980, she went back to St. Thomas College for her Master of Arts degree in Pastoral Studies. 8 years later, Joan retired from this phase of her life in 1988, but that was just the start. For the next 10 years, Joan was instrumental in the development of early childhood family education throughout St. Paul. While working directly with families and children, she became a mother mentor for many, many women with children, and she developed the grandmother class to help new mothers work through the relationship with their own mother as they became mothers themselves. Through her combined commitment to her faith and concern for social justice, specifically women's equality and its relation within the church, she was politically active thanks in part to her wonderful husband Wayne. But party activism ran in her family. Joan's grandfather was a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives in the 1910s, and her father was active in the Farmer Labor Party, when it was still just the Farmer Labor Party, in Nicollet County. In the 1960s, Joan and Wayne were active Vietnam protesters, rallying at federal offices and supporting Eugene McCarthy. When Wayne began working for the state, he was prohibited from participating in DFL activities. So Joan stepped out instead and became a delegate to the National Convention in 1968. And this was just the start of her involvement with the DFL. Over the years, the Whitmans have supported lots of candidates and lots of causes. Wayne was a candidate himself in 1970 with Joan by his side. Not only did they help the George Latimers and the Bruce Bentos of Minnesota, but they were also instrumental in helping elect Marilyn Lantry into the Minnesota Senate from St. Paul. They went on to help her daughter, Kathy Lantry, to represent the East Side in the St. Paul City Council. Since I have known Joan, she has re-energized the East Side of St. Paul by creating the Women of 67 South Caucus, an active and vibrant group of women committed to DFL principles and candidates. Joan is always willing to go door to door, to pick up the phone, and to persuade anyone who will listen about good candidates and good policies. Throughout the year, you will find her at the Capitol, still volunteering weekly for Senator Moore. There is so much more that I can tell you about Joan if I had more than the 3 minutes allowed, but I must stop there and say that I am honored to know Joan Whitman, and even more honored to say, Joan, you are truly a woman of distinction. Welcome to the DFL Hall of Fame. Our next presenter is
I'm very lucky today to have the opportunity to recognize the achievements of someone very special to me, who has been a mentor, a friend, an inspiration, and yes, my mother, Linda Woodard. Linda was introduced to the DFL in the 1980s by Janice Rick, one of the female trailblazers in the 1st Congressional District. And since then, she has followed in Janice's footsteps to be an influential presence of her own in southeastern Minnesota. In the 1980s and 90s, DFLers were few and far between in our part of the state, which meant there wasn't a large pool of volunteers to call on to help with parades or conventions or anything else that needed to be done. In fact, for many years, I think I was the volunteer pool, especially around convention time, when Linda and I spent many hours laying out delegate seating charts and bundling multiple sets of ballots. But like many other DFL women, Linda did the work that needed to be done without complaint or expecting public recognition. Linda has held party offices from Dodge County Secretary to State Director and pretty much everything in between. But no matter her position, she was always looking for ways to involve others in order to build the local DFL talent pool. For example, at one point, Linda was elected as a State Director and a county officer, which gave her 2 seats on the State Central Committee. Instead of keeping both positions, Linda resigned her county position and encouraged other women in the county to take her county spot. Linda has also helped build the party through her work on many nominations committees for the 1st Congressional District and State DFL. Anyone who has served on a nominations committee knows it can be a time-consuming and thankless task, but Linda has always taken her work on these committees seriously. She encourages other committee members to consider new individuals who show interest and promise for party positions. Likewise, she encourages newer DFLers, especially women, to run for party positions. And once they are elected, Linda is always willing to share her time and knowledge with them. But perhaps most importantly, Linda truly lives the DFL's principles. She is not afraid to discuss DFL issues outside of party events, be it at church, at work, or at social gatherings. And if she encounters resistance, Linda will respectfully challenge others' thinking about their positions and enlighten them on the DFL side of things. Even though she will never admit it, Linda has been one of the influential women in southeastern Minnesota that have helped build the party to where it is today. She has been a mentor and a role model to me and many other women within the party. So it is with great pleasure that I can say, Mom, welcome to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. We will now introduce our Rising Star Award winners. Over the years, our rising stars of the DFL party have lived up to their title. Our winners have quickly emerged as the leaders of the party today. In the past, our winners have quickly emerged as the leaders of the party today.
Field organizer that could juggle between 2 campaigns, but she had found a second family within the DFL. She spent the entire year, from the caucuses through the elections, campaigning diligently. After those successful elections, she became an assistant to the new mayor of St. Paul, Chris Bowman. And in early 2006, she was tapped to participate in the advanced campaign management training at Camp Goldstone. There she met Pam Costain and soon became her campaign manager for endorsement for Minneapolis School Board. It was also at this time that Joe Spencer encouraged her to become the chair of Senate District 66, a role she still plays today. But that was only the first half of 2006. Juanita is still working full-time for Mayor Coleman, helped not only on Keith Ellison's campaign, but also became the manager of operations for Chief Bill Finney's campaign for Ramsey County Sheriff. Now, after only a few years into the DFL, Juanita just isn't slowing down. She has learned that putting good people in politics leads to good policy. So in addition to her role in 66, Juanita is currently the secretary of the African American DFL caucus. She's the fundraiser for Melvin Carter's bid for city election in City Council in St. Paul. And if that's not enough, she's also working on her master's degree in advocacy and political leadership at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Recognizing that to be able to do all these good things, she wanted me to add that she really could not have done or could continue to do any of this without the support base of her friends and family and their never-ending understanding. Juanita has grown into an amazing campaign powerhouse for the DFL in the few years since I met her on the Kerry campaign, and she was a rock star to start. She is thoughtful, thorough, diligent, and dedicated. And as a little aside, as Keith Ellison often points out, she has skin like butter. I am very proud to induct Juanita Lewis into the Women's Hall of Fame as one of this year's DFL Rising Stars.
It's my honor today to introduce Skylark Miles as a rising star of the Minnesota DFL. Whether it's running a campaign, organizing a grassroots support team, identifying issues, or supporting one's own community, Skylark Miles has taken the lead to help improve the DFL and bring new members in, especially women and minorities. Better known as Sky to a number of us, she truly took the words of Howard Dean to heart when he told supporters, "You can make a difference." At the original meetups, she found herself surrounded by others who she described were just as angry as she was, and decided that, as she quoted, "The fault lies with me if change wasn't sought." She enthusiastically organized meetups around the state of Minnesota and became one of the original founders of the DFL meetups, now the DFL Links. After Iowa, as she calls it, she realized it's about understanding the system, networking, and getting the word out for others to become involved. In 2004, she ran for Associate Chair of Senate District 39. She also was the Associate Precinct Chair. She moved on to now hold the position of Affirmative Action Officer for the 2nd Congressional District and Chairperson of the 2nd Congressional District Nominations Committee. If you're not tired yet, listen further. In 2006, she was selected as the campaign manager for House candidate Mike Obermueller in District 38B. In a district that had never, not once, seen a Democratic representative, the race was lost by only 164 votes. And Sky was a great part of that. She has been a state delegate and an alternate on numerous occasions, and most recently was selected as the national delegate for the Minnesota Young DFL. Beyond all of her hard work on the campaign trail and within her districts, Sky has worked to ensure that women's rights are adequately addressed within the party and has continued to promote resolutions and legislation that supports a women's right to choice. She is currently a member of NOW and Code Pink, as well as a board member for the Feminist Caucus. Without a doubt, Sky Miles is a tireless advocate for the DFL and has established herself as a leader by her positive outlook, endless energy, and work and support for DFL values. Please join me in welcoming Sky Miles into the Hall of Fame as a rising star.
It is my pleasure today to introduce someone who has revitalized my political spirit, Bernita Redding. A Democrat her entire life, Bernita did not become active with the DFL until 2004, when a campaign worker dropping off some lawn signs suggested she get involved with the state house candidate. Luckily, I was managing that state house campaign and had the pleasure of getting to know Bernita. Bernita was a dependable and enthusiastic volunteer who was willing to help whenever and wherever she was needed, be it door knocking, walking in parades, or putting up lawn signs. Bernita was an invaluable asset to that campaign, and since then has become a key player in the Dodge County and Senate District 29 DFL organizations. She was also a major contributor to her husband Bill's successful bid for Mantorville City Council last year. Even though she has only been an active DFLer for a few years, Bernita possesses the political intuition of a seasoned veteran, which, coupled with her fresh perspective, makes her a real force to be reckoned with. In an area where longtime DFLers have often been afraid to break out of the mold, Bernita doesn't settle for the excuse of, "That's the way it's always been done." Bernita helped plan and put together a Dodge County DFL float that has successfully promoted the party in many summertime parades. She's also been extremely helpful in putting together fundraisers, including Senate District 29's first ever fundraiser this April, which featured Congressman Tim Walz and Senate candidates Mike Cerisi and Al Franken. With Bernita on board, we are looking forward to many more successful events and heightened visibility for Dodge County and Senate District 29 heading into the 2008 election cycle. A member of the VFW Auxiliary, Bernita has recently become involved with the DFL Veterans Caucus and says that the use of 9/11 as a photo op and the war in Iraq are what really pushed her to become more active. She will be the last one to take credit for her work. She says that all she does is talk, but that is perhaps her greatest asset. Her willingness to talk to anyone and everyone about the issues and what it means to be a DFLer, and do so in a way that is inviting and persuasive, is a crucial part of building our party. Bernita's goal is to grow the local party enough that Dodge County will be a real and credible DFL presence in the state. Given her accomplishments so far, I am confident that the goal will be realized in the not-too-distant future. I am very pleased today to induct Bernita Redding into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame as a rising star.
Very happy today to introduce Katie Rodriguez into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame as a rising star. Katie Rodriguez considers herself a lifelong Democrat, but when she moved here 4 years ago, she couldn't sit by the sidelines any longer. When I asked her why she started taking action, she simply stated, one day, she found herself throwing things at the TV when George Bush was on. And she was very adamant that she wasn't kidding. Although her TV may have taken the brunt of her frustration, the DFL has certainly benefited from her passion. She began at the Maple Grove phone bank on behalf of the Kerry campaign. And as she put in her one night and proceeded to exit, when she was stopped by Georgiana and asked, "So you're coming back next week?" At that time, she realized that perhaps she could contribute a little bit more and signed up. That led to a supervisory position at the phone bank and an ongoing campaign commitment. After the election, she didn't want to give up, and she co-founded Northern Lights, a branch of meetups in the 3rd Congressional District, which continues to have regular attendance of 25 to 45 people each month. What a wonderful accomplishment. In the most recent election, Katie served as campaign manager for Representative Lee Carlson, who, from her hard work and dedication, lost his race by only 359 votes. Her eyes are set on working more in the community this next election, and she's recently joined the Citizens Advisory Committee for Maple Grove to help assist in that goal. Katie is described by her nominator as one of the most energetic and committed young activists. But what I found when I talked with her is that she is truly an eternal optimist, believing that in government we can all work together and come together to solve problems. She describes her work with the DFL as a bunch of inexperienced people trying to do the right thing. What she probably doesn't realize is that these most inexperienced folk are following in her footsteps because of her passion, her drive, and her enthusiasm. Maple Grove and the surrounding communities, as well as the DFL at large, will continue to benefit from the contributions of Katie Rodriguez. Please join me in welcoming Katie Rodriguez to the DFL Hall of Fame as a rising star.
You know, one of the joys of working on this committee is meeting the honorees that are here today and have been in past years. And what a pleasure for me, after all of these years, to get to know our next rising star, Alice Seifert. How many of you have ever heard of Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida? Okay. Well, after graduating from Irondale High School, Alice Carlson then headed there to study marine biology and political science. Her first two classes were, get this, rocks and sediment and general politics. Guess which one caught her eye? She graduated with a degree in international relations and political science, being elected Vice President of Student Government in her junior year, which was her first political campaign, and President in her senior year. During this period, she met a guy named Will Seifert from Rhode Island who had come to Eckerd for the same purpose. Now, I don't know if Will also had that first class of rocks and sediments, but he too got involved in student government and continued his major also. Alice worked for a year after graduation in Florida for a company doing leadership training and conflict resolution for Fortune 500 executives as fresh out of college, working with the executives from Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and the like, planning team building sessions, etc. Alice and Will moved to American University in Washington to pursue master degrees in international policy for Alice and international conflict and resolution for Will, who picked up on her previous job. A family illness brought them back to Minnesota, and she is one thesis short of her degree, which she is planning to work on this summer. Right, Alice? You promise? While she was in Washington, D.C., working for nonprofits, she did some door-to-door work and discovered that she really enjoyed it. Arriving here in Minnesota, Alice applied for 3 different page positions at the legislature in late fall of 2004. She was told by all 3 that she was overqualified, but she accepted the position with then Senator Steve Kelly. In May of 2005, she became his legislative aide until October of 2006, when she became Senator Linda Higgins' committee administrator, where she remains today. During this period of time, Alice spent many hours working with Jenny Meyer and Will on first Senator Terry Bonoff's special election, then Terrell Clark's, then moving on to many night and weekend hours of work with Steve Kelly's campaigns, joining Will on Terry Bonoff's regular campaign whenever she had time. She and Kathy Saltzman literally, ladies, you're going to love this, they literally met in a women's restaurant. That started a campaign that made history. She worked with her, they got to know each other better, and she became her campaign manager during the late summer. The rest is history. A resounding three-way female DFL victory in Senate District 56 for Senator Saltzman and her two House comrades, Julie Bunn and Marcia Swales. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about Alice's own personal campaign in the near future. Many people joined in nominating Alice for this award. Among those here today are, as I have mentioned before, Senators Terry Bonoff, Linda Higgins, Steve Kelly, and Kathy Saltzman. Obviously, Alice has left her mark. Join me in honoring Alice Seifert as a 2007 DFL Women's Hall of Fame Rising Star.
I serve as the Associate Chair of the Pine County DFL, and we are honored to have Elizabeth Toll active in our county. We are thrilled that she is being honored today as a DFL Rising Star. We share that excitement with Congressman Overstar, Senator Tony Laurie and his wife Marlena, and the county activists in our unit who decided to help sponsor this event on her behalf. Elizabeth is a bright and thoughtful young woman who is a member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Today she is joined by Melanie Benjamin, Chief Executive of the Mille Lacs Band. She works in the Government Relations Office in Hinckley and brings an abundance of energy to the job. Elizabeth became very active in the 2006 cycle. She attended her first caucus and local conventions. She was on a mission. She educated us by presenting a resolution about using tribal IDs as identification to vote, which later became a part of the state platform. She won the delegates over with her smile. At the state convention, she was an active part of our unit, even going against what we might call the old guard by being the 5-to-1 vote in a hotly contested endorsement. In addition to helping our local candidates Tim Faust and Tony Laurie, she helped organize the Native Vote team that ran a successful GOT effort across the state. Currently, Elizabeth is interning in Washington, D.C., where she's going to split her time, and actually she came home this weekend to join us, especially for this event, between Jerry Sikorsky and Congresswoman Betty McCollum's office. Elizabeth is eager to learn as much as she can about the political process, help her Native community, and be a part of the DFL. Please help me celebrate Elizabeth Toll's commitment to standing up and making a difference in our community. Melissa Parker will present the last award.
Hi folks, thanks for hanging in there. Lindsay, with a name like Wolschlager, I'm sure you're used to being last, but certainly not least. For those of you that haven't yet been introduced, I have the great pleasure of telling you a little bit about my friend and my co-worker, Lindsay Wolschlager. I first had the pleasure of meeting Lindsay when she worked alongside her mother, now Representative Sandy Wolschlager, and her earlier campaign efforts. When I had the opportunity to take on the role as House DFL Caucus Campaign Director in 2006, Lindsay was already on staff as a campaign assistant and the lead staff coordinator for the candidate recruitment effort. It was immediately clear to me and everybody else around her that Lindsay's dedication to Democrats, to the DFL party and its values, and to Democratic women was much more profound than that of just simply a candidate's daughter looking to make a career for herself in politics. As the campaign geared up, Lindsay took on a new role, and we at the House had to share her with the Senate. Now, the House and Senate DFL caucuses haven't had a great history of working well together, but the campaign in 2006 brought a new spirit of togetherness and cooperation, and Lindsay was just the person to head up that effort. Lindsay managed the House and Senate canvass effort. Under her watch, a team of 10 canvassers in 2 vans set across the state to talk to voters about our House and Senate DFL candidates. And folks, all together, they knocked on 80,572 doors in 37 House districts and 25 Senate districts. Arguably, the canvass team, yeah, no, that's worth a clap. Arguably, the canvass team and their leader, Lindsay Wolschlager, had more of a direct impact on winning Democratic campaigns than anyone else in 2006, from the large House and Senate majorities to Congressman Walz and Senator Klobuchar. It's true that Lindsay is just simply a great leader. The only complaint that the canvass team ever made, and really it's more of a comment than a complaint, was that it's a good thing that Lindsay works for the DFL and not the National Weather Service. It seemed that every time that Lindsay took a look at the Doppler radar and she declared the rain would miss, there was almost always rain. I mean heavy rain, or better yet, tornado warnings. So basically, she will never be known as meteorologist Wolschlager. I know that all of us who have had the pleasure of working with Lindsay on behalf of DFL candidates really appreciated having her as a colleague. She never ever hesitates to pitch in where she's needed. She's an amazing, amazing mentor to interns and to young staff. She always lends a helping hand even where she doesn't need to. And she goes the extra mile, and sometimes many, many miles, like the time that she drove one member of our team all the way up to meet the rest of the group in Bemidji so that he could go to a barbecue hosted by Representative Frank Moe. But when I think of Lindsay's many strengths, and she does have very many, I think her hallmark is her infinite patience. Many of you know Jan Ryan down at the DFL. Oh, yeah. She's been honored here as a woman of distinction. Anyway, Jan is the receptionist. She is the first face and first voice that welcomes you to the DFL headquarters. She's also a gatekeeper of sorts. Frankly, she keeps the riffraff out. But for some reason, Lindsay seems to be the one in the building that deals with every phone call, the most challenging phone calls, the most challenging visits that make their way somehow past Jan. I think Jan realized what the rest of us already know, that Lindsay was the only one in the building that's nice enough, who's polite enough, and patient enough to deal with everyone, no matter their political persuasion, no matter their attitude at the moment, or position in the world, with respect and a smile. For all of these reasons and many, many more, I'm very honored today to induct my friend and colleague Lindsay Wolschlager into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame as a rising star of the DFL party.
At this time, I would like to acknowledge some of the hardest working, most generous in spirit, time, and energy, and one of the most dedicated groups of women in our party, the members of the Women's Summit Committee. This beautiful event could not happen without their collective effort, and so I would like those who are here, my fellow members of the Women's Summit Committee, to please stand and be honored. They're Gail Huntley, Jenny Myers, Kathleen Murphy, Jennifer Notice, Betsy O'Berry, Teresa O'Neill, Carmen Ortloff, Melissa Parker, Alana Peterson, Sue Rigo, Amanda Rudolph, Jackie Stevenson, Tammy Teskey, and Elaine Voss. Let's give them a hand. Every year, after honoring these remarkable women, we hope that all of you here today feel as we do, inspired by their stories, in awe of their achievements, and moved to action. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge the contributions and sacrifices of those significant to all our winners. As most people in this room know, political dedication can sometimes be a lifestyle choice. So please join me in thanking those that care about our DFL women. And as you leave today, please think about women you know that should be honored at next year's event. We have a few of this year's nomination forms at the registration desk that you can pick up on your way out. Fill it out and send it in to us, and we'll hold it for next year. We also will be sending out nomination forms in January 2008. But feel free at any time to email us a nomination or a request for a nomination form to us at women'shalloffame@yahoo.com. Feel free to ask me later if you didn't write that down. Also, upon leaving today, please take a moment to browse our lovely guest table for wonderful items that will serve as reminders to never lose sight of our goals as DFLers, and items that will help you maintain the momentum you feel from today's event. Lastly, it's time that we pay one final tribute to all DFL women. At each seat is a package of seeds that encourages you to honor DFL women today. I believe we've done that. Just as important, we ask that you mentor the DFL women leaders of tomorrow. We're already gearing up for another election cycle which could determine the outcome of many key women's social and economic issues. And now more than ever, we need the leadership, determination, drive, organizational skills, and all the talents of DFL women to take center stage. So please join my committee in one last tribute by raising your glasses and offering a toast to DFL women. Thank you all for your attendance today. A couple last housekeeping details. If all of this year's award winners could please meet up here by the stage, we're going to take a picture. The rest of you can feel free to wait and mingle out in the lobby as long as you'd like. We've also videotaped the presentation today, and if you want a copy of the DVD, stop by the registration table and let us know. Thank you. Tape the presentation today, and if you want